Great, thank you. Welcome everyone to week 3 of apps across the curriculum. I'm Diana Petschauer. I'm a ResNet certified assistive technology professional and founder of the company AT for Education, and currently sharing my screen, so hopefully you are able to see my website and follow along with me as we go through this session. This webinar is part 3 in a 3-week online course. So for those of you who didn't attend the first 2 weeks, and if you are interested in watching the recording of the other 2 webinars, they are available on the CTD website, Center for Technology and Disability, ctdinstitute.org. And the first webinar was all about iOS accessibility, built-in accessibility features to the iPad, iPad mini, iPhone, etc., and all of the apps that you may want to use with your students on iPads and iOS devices. Last week, the webinar was all focused on Going Google and Chrome apps and extensions, and the free and low-cost resources through Chromebooks, as well as using the Chrome browser on a laptop or a desktop for students. And this week we're focusing on free and low-cost assistive technology tools and resources, which is a combination of a little bit of everything. There's going to be software, some website resources, apps, and also extensions and add-ons in Chrome. So again, all 3 webinars will be recorded if you want to review any of the information. It's a great deal of information, hopefully, for you to be able to utilize with your students. And the first program that we're going to be talking today is one of my favorite programs, and I find that many people were familiar with it quite a few years ago when it was much different, maybe even a little bit more difficult to use. And now it's come so far, and I find many schools and professionals and even parents not realizing how much is available through this program, which is Bookshare. And so I really want to focus the beginning on Bookshare and a little bit about the program, downloading books, who qualifies, and how it is utilized on various devices. And so on my screen now you can see bookshare.org. If you'd like to follow along, you're welcome to come here yourself, especially if you recently started an organizational account. So Bookshare is funded by OSEP, Office of Special Education Programs, a national program, and is available to provide accessible textbooks to students, textbooks as well as chapter books and research materials to students who have a print disability. And that word print disability has been fairly new of the past few years, and individuals, some are not familiar with what that means. So essentially, the students with print disabilities qualify to use this program for free. Your students will already have a primary disability that they are diagnosed with, whether it's dyslexia, learning disability, physical disability, etc. And then the secondary disability, which is typically written into present level of accommodations in their IEP and other areas of the IEP, is that they have a print disability. And this is up to the educational team to decide. So it's the IEP team members or the 504 team members that decide that this student has a print disability and needs access to their textbooks and materials in an alternative accessible format. So overall, your students who qualify to use this program are your students who have dyslexia or another learning disability, are struggling with fluency and comprehension and reading several grade levels below their peers. Your students with a physical disability that either can't turn the pages of a book or have a very difficult time carrying a lot of heavy books class to class and need the digital version. Your students who are blind or low vision and can't see the text, or they need it magnified in large print. Your students with cortical visual impairment, traumatic brain injury, and a few others qualify to use Bookshare. So I'm sure many of you can think of students who qualify with these disabilities. It is available K through 12 as well as post-secondary, and it's also an option for adults who may be taking classes for at least 3 months or more. When they finish education, it is available for fee, because it's for free all the way through any type of classes. It's available for about $75 a year, which I think is still pretty reasonable if they want to continue to access this library. You can see to the right it says over 360,000 titles. There really is a great deal amount of books available here. Those large textbooks, math, science, reading, social studies, chapter books, novels, things that they may be reading together in class or for book reports. magazines and periodicals for research, all of those things available at Bookshare. And we are also going to talk about how to get accessible textbooks when they're not available at Bookshare. So we'll be discussing that this afternoon as well. So you can see as far as who can have an account through Bookshare, it is free for U.S. students. So schools sign up for what's called an organizational account. You do have a few handouts, Bookshare step-by-step, and a few others in regards to downloading books. But you can go through the Bookshare website itself. It has a lot of phenomenal places for you to get help and to help you with signing up. So schools can have a free organizational account, and I'm going to go through that a little bit as well because I have an organizational account pulled up now. And that means that the professionals can download books for students on any of their devices, whether it's a laptop, Mac, or PC, whether it's a Chromebook, an iPad. If you have an organizational account, within a day you can start downloading books for students immediately. There's no sending in documentation any longer, and we'll go through that process so you can see what that looks like. There's only a form to fill out for the students to have their own individual account that the parents will sign, and I do highly recommend that as well, and we'll talk about why the individual account benefits students as we go along with talking about Bookshare and download. So on the Bookshare website itself, under the Help Center, and I already have that open in a couple of different places here. Well, actually, that's more about the Bookshare reading. So we'll go to the Help Center first. So after today's training, if you still want to train yourself or have further information, certainly we do travel to provide hands-on training to use Bookshare for educators and students. But I want you to know that if you go to the Help Center right on the website, and then over to the left under Training and Resources, you will find Tools for Trainers, and you can see the videos and webinars. And there's a lot of really great video tutorials. They also have an FAQ section, so frequently asked questions for, you know, how do I sign up? How do I download a book? What do I do if there's not a book available? Things of that nature. So online tutorials, plus just PDFs that you can print off for other educators or yourself if you're that type of learner instead of videos. But really a lot of great training resources built right into the website. So know that that is there. When you have an organizational account, you will maybe be the first person to log in or the person of contact, primary contact PC, who starts the organizational account for free. You just fill out a form, sign up your school. If your school's already signed up, you'll find someone in your district or your school to add you as a sponsor if you want to start downloading books as a professional for students. So to the top right-hand corner, I'm going to click on My Bookshare. I have signed in with my email and password. This is what your page would look like if you signed in to an organizational account, that school account, as a professional with your email and password. So to the left-hand side, you see this list here, my history, my reading list, members, and sponsors. So we're going to talk about members and sponsors. Sponsors, when you have an organizational account, sponsors are the professionals, educators, special educators, related therapists, paraprofessionals, those who are working with students. They are sponsors to download books for students. So if I click on sponsors, when you have the ability to sign in or your primary contact does, you can see at the bottom here, it says add a sponsor. If you click on add a sponsor, this is very quick and easy to do. You'll put the first and last name of the teacher or professional, the district, the school, their title, their email, which is their school email, and the phone, which is the school phone number. And then you save it. As soon as you fill out that form, that professional immediately receives an email from Bookshare stating that they've been added and to create their password. Now, when I provide hands-on training for Bookshare, we do this. Professionals are literally signed up within minutes. They're using their account along with me. So this isn't something that takes long. If you have a few minutes to get this started, and you'll be able to start downloading books for students. So you save that. That person will get an email, and they'll be able to set their password, and then they're going to be able to log into bookshare.org with their email and password. If you had an account a long time ago and you know you have an account, you can simply put your email in and say forgot password, and they will email you a link to reset it. So don't worry about that. Some people haven't used it for a long time. You can certainly do that. And once you've been added as a sponsor, you can see that you can set anyone to primary contact. So in this account, I'm the primary contact. I could click to the left of Brad's name and set the primary contact, and now he's the primary contact. And that just simply means that anytime Bookshare calls the school district for any reason, which they don't typically ever, or if you need to call them, you're the main person that they're going to want to speak to, and maybe you're the main person that's helping to roll it out in your school. I do encourage anyone who doesn't have an account to just start the account for your school if your school doesn't already have one, because again, you can change that primary contact at any time. So if an administrator now says, I want to be the primary contact, easily done. One click, they're the primary contact. And you can see to the right-hand side, you can remove sponsors. So as teachers leave your school district, you want to click to the left of their name and remove them. And that is important for a couple of reasons. The most important being if they happen to go to another school and they want to be added to their district or school account, they won't be allowed to be added until they're off of the current one that they're in. So as they leave and you have changeover, you want to make sure that you remove those sponsors so they can be added at another school. So those are the sponsors. Those are professionals, teachers, etc., that will be downloading books for students. And then above sponsors to the left-hand side of my list is members. When you click on members, this is where you'll add your students as members. And you can see again at the bottom of the list says add a member, and you simply fill out this form. So you are not mailing in documentation of any kind for students. You are simply putting in their first and last name, their birth date and grade. Both of those should be available on an IEP or 504. It is not necessary or required to create a username or password. Most people don't, just so that it doesn't get complicated. You can see they don't have an asterisk, so it's not required. You do need to put in the district and the school. So that's why you need to start your organizational account first, so that the district and the school is there. Then you check off how they qualify. Do they qualify as visual, learning, or physical disabilities? Do they have an IEP or a 504? The rest of these download tools and preferences, most of the time you don't need to change this at all. It's set by default to download DAISY with images when available. DAISY is simply a format, an accessible format, that will allow the student to have highlighting with text-to-speech and to be able to search by chapters and pages, etc. So most of the time, the majority of your students are going to want it downloaded in DAISY format, so that it can be read with the free software that I'm going to show you, or with the extension. And if you need a different file, you can change that here, but you'll also have the opportunity to change that file during the download process. So you don't have to worry about that being changed at this time. So you can leave all of the bottom preferences as is, and as you go through the download process, we'll talk about if you want to change that file to just MP3 audio for your students who may not need the text, or Braille options for your students who may be using a refreshable Braille display. So once you've filled out this form, you have two options. You can save so that that student is added to your organizational account. What that means is, starting at that moment, you can start downloading books for that student immediately. Now what happens is Bookshare takes your word for it that you have the documentation to prove the student has an IEP or 504. You don't have to mail all of that in. If you choose to save and add individual membership, what happens then is the forms pop up for you to print out or send through email to the parents, and they need to sign so that they are agreeing to let their child have an individual membership. There are certainly, I have Bookshare handouts for parents. If anyone's interested, I can make sure I load those onto CTD for you to use. They'll be available on the website afterwards. You can always certainly email me for them as well. But the Bookshare for Parents is also, if you want to find it on their website, typically they have it there for you to print off as a PDF, but I have them readily available as well. And they're really great handouts to offer to parents who may never have heard of Bookshare, why it benefits their child to use it, and how they're going to be able to access their textbooks with the accessible format and the text-to-speech or large print and those things that we're going to be going over today. You don't have to add the individual membership while you add the student. You can do it at a later time. When you see their list of names, you could click to the left of the name, and then you could add individual membership at the bottom of the page there at any time to get to those forms. Add to quick list means you're going to be downloading books for those students often. Some schools have district accounts instead of just school accounts, meaning instead of just at one elementary or one middle school, they choose to have a district. And if the district has 26 schools in it, for example, this list is going to look very long when you log on, and you're going to want those students on your quick list so they show up at the top of your list. So that can be very helpful. So you started your organizational account. You've added your sponsors. You've added your members. The next thing you want to make sure that you and your students do is download the reading tools. So to the left-hand side in my menu again, you can see download reading tools. And of course, I've already downloaded these myself, what I need. So if you're using a Mac or PC, a laptop or a desktop, you will want to download the free software. It's called Read Out Loud, Bookshare Edition. And you want to also download just a little bit further down the acapella voices. They're both free. If you don't choose to download the voices, you're only going to have the built-in voices on the device that you're using. Sometimes they're nice. Typically with a Mac, they're a little bit nicer, but most PCs, they sound pretty robotic. So if you download the acapella voices, those are Heather and Ryan, and they're a little bit nicer quality, nicer sounding voices to have these books read out loud. So you want to download the software, and you want to download the voices. Now, before we get into downloading a book, which we're going to do, you want to make sure that you realize when you download a book, you are downloading onto the device that you're on. So when I download, I'm downloading right onto this laptop. If you're downloading a book for a student, you're downloading it onto the laptop or desktop that you're using. So the student does not automatically see this book, which means if you need to, you can download to preview a book and make sure the content is appropriate. Some teachers prefer to do that. The other option that you have when the student has an individual account, which is another reason why I highly recommend it, if the student gets an individual account, when you go through the download process, educators and sponsors have the option of putting books on a reading list. If you put them on a reading list, you can assign those books to one student or 5 students or a class. Typically with your students who qualify for Bookshare, it would be a smaller special ed class, for example. You can put them on a reading list, assign them to students, and when the student logs into their individual account on any device, wherever at home or at school, they're going to see their books waiting for them as they log in. So that individual account is a really great way for you to share books over a weekend or from another location as you know something's coming up in class. That individual membership is also going to be really helpful for students to learn how to download books for themselves. If they have a print disability, it's not something that's going to go away. They're going to be doing this for their educational career. Really important for them to get used to doing this process themselves, downloading the books and using them. So really great for you to set up an individual account for those students also. So you've downloaded the software, and you've added sponsors as professionals, and you've added students as members. Now remember, if your students are going to be reading the books, they'll need that software on their laptop that they're going to be using at home, at school. They're going to need it on either a Mac or PC. If they're using a Chromebook, they're going to need the Chrome extension. We'll talk about that when we get to that. And I'll also talk about the app on the iPad. And there are apps available for Android devices as well for your students who are reading it on those devices. So if you're going to download a book, you go up and you can see the search bar at the top of the page, says title, author, ISBN. You can certainly just search for any of that information immediately, but I typically click on advanced search, which is just right below that search bar. And now you can see I have this entire form to fill out. Title, author. I do highly recommend the ISBN number to get directly to the book that you're specifically looking for. That's really helpful. And you could search by grade. Later in the process, if you wanted to just search for a book for research or for fun, you can filter by category, picture book, etc. So you can search by putting in the title. I'm just going to put in Harry Potter. You can see I've searched for that before. I know it's there. Anyone can search this library. If you don't have an account yet, but you're just curious to see if the books that your students use, whether they're textbooks or chapter books, just go right ahead and search. You don't have to log in to search, and you will be able to know. It'll tell you if that book is available in the library. Excuse me. So we're going to search for Harry Potter. I'm going to click on Advanced Search. And now you can see I have numerous results for Harry Potter. Sometimes you'll get 1 or 2 results. Sometimes you'll get several results. I'm going to choose the book that I want. I'm going to choose Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. So here you can see my options, and your screen may look a little bit different at this point. Sometimes it shows the description of the book and the title. It depends on the operating system that you're using, but you'll overall have the same results. And then you're going to have 2 buttons as options, whether it's in this format or below the text description. It says download or add to reading list. So as I mentioned, when you're downloading a book, you are downloading onto the device that you're using that day, which means the student will need to use that device, or you can download it onto another device that they may be using at home. There is no limit. You can download this one book on 5 devices if you need to in 5 different locations. There's no limit. It's not taken off of the bookshelf or deleted until you or the student deletes it or gets rid of it. So I'm going to choose Harry Potter, Prisoner of Azkaban. And the other option to download, as I mentioned, if they had that individual membership, you would be able to add it to a reading list, and then they would be able to get on any device at home or in another location and get to those books waiting for them. So I'm going to click on Download for today. You see that it then brings you to your student list, and I have to click on a student to download this book for by putting a check mark to the left of their name, and then I can choose Download Book. It confirms once again the list of members, or the member from the list of members rather, your student, the format, which is DAISY, and download. Now again, the step prior, if you wanted to change that format to just audio, which is MP3, or refreshable Braille, if you needed to work with a refreshable Braille display, they have several Braille options, which is wonderful for your students who may be reading Braille and using those electronic refreshable Braille displays. They are phenomenal. So you have those other 2 options if you needed to. We're going to download the DAISY. Now when I click download, it brings you to your page of all your previous downloads. So these would be in your history. So if you ever need to get back to the books you downloaded before, you can see I'm a fan of Harry Potter. And the ones that I've already downloaded, stay downloaded or add to reading list. You can always add it to the reading list after the fact as well. And the one I haven't downloaded yet, it shows you the date and the time, and it says available. That means I still need to do something with it. It's available. I'm going to click on available. And now I'm getting this zipped file. On a PC, this is a very important step. It is in the step-by-step. It's also in all the tutorials on Bookshare's website. When you click on this zipped file, the important step up at the top here where my mouse is says extract all files. This is something that you need to do, or you won't be able to use it with the software to have it read out loud or enlarge the text. So you do need to extract all files, which is essentially unzipping it. If you do this on a Mac, it typically does it on its own for you lucky Mac users, typically, and puts it right into your downloads, and you'll find it in your downloads. If you're on a PC, you need to extract all files, and this next important step is this is where you save it where you want it to be saved. For today's purposes, I'm putting it on my desktop so I can get back to it very quickly and easily to demonstrate. For those of you who are going to be using Bookshare daily, you see this nice button here, Make a New Folder. Most people want to choose Make a New Folder and create a Bookshare folder, for example. You may be creating student folders with their names to put them into. Most schools, again, have their own network. You might be putting it in a folder on your network so that other people can get to those if they need them for the students. Different wherever you are in particular location, why you would be downloading these books and for who. So for today, I'm putting it on my desktop. Again, you're not going to want to put these books on your desktop often unless you're just trying this out along with me or on your own, because they do take up a lot of memory and you lose them easily. They're not backed up. So I'm going to click OK. You can see now this is where these folders from the book are going to be saved on my desktop. And now I'm going to click on the bottom right to extract them. So that's it. The folders are on my desktop. I can close out of these two windows, and I'm just going to minimize. So you can see here's all the files on my desktop that are associated with Harry Potter. So it's normal, especially if you download a large book, you're going to have a lot of files. That's why you typically want to put them into a folder. So now what I'm going to open is the software to read these books. I need to pull this book into the software that I've downloaded so I can do things with it, such as have it read out loud. So you can see Read Out Loud Bookshare Edition. It looks like a little purple flying book. This is a software that you download first. It's at the beginning. It is free and available on their website. So now we have Read Out Loud Bookshare Edition open. This is what the software looks like, and we want to pull a book into it. On the top left-hand corner, what looks like a little E with a plus sign says Add eText. I'm going to click on there, and then I'm going to go to where I saved my book, and that's my desktop. And you can see the little Harry Potter with that purple flying book, and I click Open, and now I have my book in my software. So a few of your options to start with is the text-to-speech. At the very top toolbar there where it says File, Edit, Speech Tools, etc. I'm hovered over Speech. I'm going to click on Speech. And in this drop-down menu, you want to make sure, of course, if you want it read out loud, that you have a check mark next to Turn Speech On. You can also scroll down to Voice Settings. And you can see that I have Heather and Ryan available because I downloaded those free a cappella voices from the Bookshare website. If you don't, you'll just have those other voices that are built into your computer. So the text-to-speech, you click on where you want it to begin reading. I just clicked on the word Harry. And the speech button is the purple speaker icon there at the top. My mouse is hovered over it now. And I'm just going to click on Speak.
Harry Potter was a highly unusual boy in many ways. For one thing, he hated the summer holidays more than any other time of year. For another, he really wanted to do his homework but was forced to do it in secret.
So I just clicked on the purple Speak button again to stop the speech. Now again, clicking back on Speech in my toolbar, if I go down to my voice settings, you can see if I wanted to slow this down, I could slow down the rate, faster or slower. I could change the pitch, and I can adjust the volume. So the text-to-speech option is there. To the top right where it says eText Style, you can see it's currently Daisy. This is where I can change it to large white on black, which can be very helpful, large yellow on black. There are many other styles. There's Blossom, elementary paper. You can see that if you went down this list, there's quite a few options, stars, deuce, etc. Again, if you have a student that would perseverate on this, set a timer. They have 5 minutes to choose their style, and then they read. And also, my top toolbar up here where my mouse is, you can see that you can just increase or decrease the text size by clicking on the big A or the little a. So if you just need to increase the text size, you can certainly do that. You don't want to change the style. Now there's also a highlighter up here, the green highlighter or bookmark. It can be used for both. If you highlight text with your mouse first, and then you click on that green bookmark, that now becomes a bookmark to the right-hand side here, and you see that it puts its information to the right side under my notes section. So if I click on that green bookmark later when I open the book, I'm going to get right back to that part of the book. So it acts as a bookmark. But I can also start highlighting an important piece of information that maybe I want for a comprehension question or a test later. If I highlight again, I could use the same color, or now I have another option up here is yellow. And over in my notes section, when it puts it there, you can see it kind of starts like an outline. You can click in these notes, so if you need to click in the notes section, I can get my mouse over here, there we go. If you need to click in these notes section and add notes yourself with the student or delete, etc., you can certainly do that. You can erase highlights. There is the option up there. If I re-highlight a highlight, I can then click on my eraser, and it asks you if you want to delete that. Yes, so I can get rid of that particular highlight if I need to. Oops. As long as you don't have too many things running at once like I do. We'll try this again. At least we're through almost all of the features of Read Out Loud, which is good. There's a dictionary option there. And the only other thing to remember with the software is that you do need to hit File Save As each time. So just like you would save a typical document, if you want that notes section, I'm just going to get rid of these files on my desktop so it doesn't cause anything to go awry. So if you want to save those notes in the notes section, you do need to hit File Save As, and most educators or students just save it as the date, so the last time they were working on it. Maybe they'll add a little note to the saved file, but it essentially is saving those notes concurrently as you take them. If you don't choose to save, the next time the student opens the book, those notes will not be there. So if that is something you want to save all along, you will want to make sure that you hit File Save As. Now again, we downloaded the book onto this device, so it would be on this laptop, and this is where the notes would be. So typically students who are using Bookshare on a laptop or a Chromebook, they're using that same device back and forth between home and school so that they have that consistency. Because if they have it downloaded on two different devices, unfortunately the notes do not automatically show up on the other device. And when you're using the extension on a Chromebook, you will need to make sure that you're using the same Chromebook each time if you want it to begin reading at the last place where the student left off. So before I show the extension, if you have any questions about what I've shown so far, you can type them into the chat, and the administrator is going to read the questions to me. I know this is a lot of information, so I want to make sure I pause just for a moment to ask if there are any questions about Bookshare this far.
All right, Diana, you have one question in the chat so far, and another one looks like it's being typed. But the first question is from Cheryl, and she asks, can you download a book to then be printed? I am thinking of a student who needs large print double-spaced, and we could create that if the text were in a Word doc. His eyes fatigue when using a screen.
Yes, absolutely. So I just pulled that book into the Read Out Loud software. You can do the same, and up in the top toolbar there is the option to print. So you can first enlarge the text in the Read Out Loud software and then choose to print it. Or, of course, you could just hit the old-fashioned copy and paste it into a Word doc if you wanted to do that.
All right. And the next question is from Marcia. What about using the web reader? Is that more accessible than downloading to a device?
Great question. So that's what we're going to use next. We're going to talk about using the web reader, which is the extension. It's essentially the Chrome extension. The software allows you to do much more as far as taking the notes, saving places, and bookmarking. So you can't do as much with the web reader, but the web reader will work as an option on a Chromebook. I find if you're using a Mac or PC, that the software, the free software, it's free, is much more efficient. But yes, you can use the web reader, and we're going to talk about that next, and I'm going to demonstrate it as well from a student's point of view.
All right, and you've got one more. Has Bookshare made it possible to delete books from one's download history yet?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that question?
Has Bookshare made it possible to delete books from one's download history yet?
Oh, that's a good question. I wasn't aware that you couldn't delete it from your history, so I'll have to research that for you and get back to you on that. I haven't tried to delete something from my history, so, and it hasn't come up as a question, so I'll have to research that for you. I'm taking it as somebody in the audience has tried to delete from the history, and it wasn't possible. Was not possible. So this
She says
is
yes.
sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So this particular, if I do find the solution, I'll post it on the discussion on CTD. Otherwise, actually, I'll make a point. I am on social media. AT for Education is on Facebook and Twitter and our website. So I'll post about it if I find that solution. And if you follow us there, you'll be able to see it, just in case you're not on the CTD online. So I'm now on the page for the Bookshare Web Reader. So if you are going to use the Chrome extension, you can use it on a Mac or PC. You can use it on the Surface Pro. You can also use it on an Android tablet and some Windows tablets. And you can use it on Chromebooks. And a lot of schools are going Google and using Chromebooks. And so you can see on the Bookshare website itself, you can get the information about the web reader, and that's the Chrome extension. We'll talk about downloading that. You do need to have the Chrome browser. And as I mentioned, this comes up a lot, this question, why does Bookshare Web Reader not remember my last read location? So if the student does decide to use the extension, the web reader, it means that you have to make sure that that student has access to the same device in all locations. So, and that's because it will begin reading from the beginning again. It won't begin reading where they left off. If they have a 50-chapter book, that's obviously not an efficient way for them to access it. So I guess to go back to the very beginning, accessible educational materials, whether books or learning materials, it is required by law for schools to provide this to the students who need the accessible format. They need to provide access. Bookshare is a free way to do it. However, if they are not going to have access to the same device in all locations, then the web reader on a Chromebook or a laptop is not the most efficient way for them to provide it. It would have to be on software on a Mac or PC, or again through an Android or app tablet if they're going to have that particular device going back and forth. So this is available here, as well as all of their information for using the web reader. And want to also make sure you realize this is a how-to guide. This is available step-by-step. You can see here, searching, and instead of download, you'll click on Read Now, and it's going to open up with the extension. I'm going to demonstrate this. And then you have a few options to change the text. And the document that was shared in CTD is this one. I can get it to open here. Oh, thinking about it. There we go. So this is just another document that is friendly with using the WebShare Reader from the Chrome browser and walks you through step by step. So you have these resources after today's training to use if you're going to start using the web reader itself. And I'm going to close out a few of these things to get back to the Bookshare website. So what I'm going to do is go back to my Bookshare. I'm going to log out of the organizational account. And go into the individual account. There we go. So this is the individual demo account that Bookshare has available for anyone who is a mentor or trainer. If you start teaching others in your school district to use Bookshare, this is a way for you to show individuals how to use it from the student's point of view. So you can see that there are certain books that you can download as a student point of view that are here in the recent books. So this is what they would see when they download a book if you put it on a reading list for them. They're going to see the Read Now option. Oops, and actually what I need to do first in my extensions is allow. Oh, it looks like it's opening it up anyway. Yep, okay, I still have it activated. Good. So Bookshare Web Reader, this is what it would look like when they use the Bookshare Web Reader, whether it opens up again on a laptop, Mac or PC, on a Chromebook, on a tablet, Android or Windows tablet, or on a Surface Pro. So they can use this web reader on just about all devices, and you can see that it's just a few options that they have for searching to get through the table of contents, text-to-speech.
After a small test ride, worked Jared and Bruce built a big one. It was 4 feet high with long metal fins. They placed a hard plastic capsule on top.
And then in the settings, you could increase the font size. You have a few options here. It goes from 18 to 28 to 48 to 70. You could change the text and background color. and a few other options here as far as the pace slower or faster, display page numbers, of course, and save your settings. It goes automatically from inverse colors to typical with this button here, which they call night mode. Also nice for those of us who just prefer the opposite contrast while reading at night. So compared to the software and the app that I'll talk about, it is definitely more limited, but it is certainly an option, and sometimes this is all your students need. And this is a great solution for the students who just need the text-to-speech, easy, quick, pull it up, and have access again on those Chromebooks if you're using those, and on other devices. But again, just that important thing to remember with the web reader is it's going to begin reading at the beginning unless you're using the same device, and then it's going to begin reading where it left off the last time they were done reading. So that's really important, of course, because they have a lot of pages to get through. They're not going to want to start at the beginning each time. There's also been a few difficulties or glitches here and there with the web reader beginning to read in German and other languages. So they do have solutions for that now, thank goodness. They do have solutions listed on their website. So if that happens to you, you download the web reader and it begins reading not in the language that you need, then you can look on their website and they do have the fix for that as well. So before I start talking about the iPad app for Bookshare Books, just going to pause again to find out if there's any more questions. Okay, I'm going to continue forward then. I'm going to close out the web reader. Now, Voice Dream Reader. We did go over this app in session 1, webinar 1. So if you're interested in any of the apps for the iPad for your struggling learners, feel free to watch that webinar. It's recorded and available. And we did go in depth into Voice Dream Reader. I was trying to reflect my iPad earlier with Reflector. Or Air Server, and it wasn't allowing me to do so. I am going to try again, see if I can demonstrate this live, but if not, I want to be sure that I show you it is available for the iPad Voice Dream Reader, and it does have the options, a lot more options than the software, the free software. It has the option to text-to-speech, highlight, change the font size and style. You can isolate 1 sentence, 3 sentences, for example. You can read also PDF and documents from Google Drive or Dropbox. So I love that it gives you the option to read Bookshare books. You can be connected to Bookshare. But for those students who need their textbooks read out loud, or the font to be larger, or a different text style like the dyslexia font, all of those options are available here. And you can also change anything such as worksheets or handouts that are shared in their Google Drive or Dropbox. And most schools are using Google Drive. So know that if you're going to be using it on an iPad or an iPhone or an iPod Touch, even the mini versions, iPad mini, Voice Dream Reader is an excellent app for your students accessing it on those devices. So I am going to quickly try to reflect my iPad and see how that goes. And if not, then we will move on to the next thing. I'll give it a go. No, it's kicking me off. So I'll have to troubleshoot that in another time. Thank goodness it worked for session 1 for all of those iPad apps. Not quite sure why it's not working for this session. But certainly if you want the full demonstration of the thorough app and using it step by step, check out the recorded webinar from session 1. It's on ctdinstitute.org online where you registered for this webinar. You can certainly watch that thoroughly. I do step by step, and they have videos certainly on YouTube online for using Voice Dream Reader as well for Bookshare books or access to documents in Google Drive. So now what we're going to move on to is a few more free options for assistive technology. And one of the things that I want to show, looks like I'm blinking there. I just want to make sure I'm not getting kicked off. I shouldn't be. So I'm going into my app. So last week we talked about Chrome apps and extensions. And I just showed you the Chrome Web Reader. So for those of you who weren't joining us for that particular webinar, I'm in the Chrome browser. It is the icon at the bottom of my screen where my mouse is. It looks like a little beach ball, green, yellow, and red here where my mouse is. And when you are in the Chrome browser, you are going to have access when you click on this top left symbol up here where my mouse is now. It says Apps. It looks like a little square of mini squares. Some people call it a waffle. Sometimes it shows up to the right-hand side and it's all black. But this is the icon that you click on to get to your app. You can see I have several downloaded. Yours doesn't look like this unless you downloaded the apps that I do. But you will always see this app or icon, which is the little beach ball in the beach bag. Some people call it a briefcase. And when I hover over it, it says Web Store. And it would say Web Store underneath it as well. So when you click on Web Store, this is where you can get to search for those apps and extensions for education to support so many different things. The majority of them free, some of them free for a certain amount of time, and then it's a subscription. So many for time management, text-to-speech, voice recognition, mind mapping and brainstorming, math, science. There's so much here. You can search, you can download, and you can delete if you don't like it. So for those of you who just saw and are interested in using the Bookshare Web Reader, this is where you have to download it from in order to use it. So you can put in Bookshare Web Reader, and when you click on Enter, you see now Bookshare Web Reader is the second one down. I already have it, so it's asking me to rate it. If you didn't have it, it would look like the one that says Open Dyslexic, another good one at the bottom, and it would say Add to Chrome. And if you click on that plus sign, it's then going to be added, and you're going to have it as an icon in the top right of your screen, and you're going to be able to use it. So if you download apps and you open up the Chrome browser and you go to the left of your page and click on that little icon that says apps, that little waffle, your apps that you download will show up here. You can see I've downloaded several. If you download many, you click on the arrow to the right and you'll get to other apps. If you download extensions, they show up to the top right of your browser and sometimes in it. So where my mouse is now. So my mouse is currently hovered over Extensity, which looks like a little yin-yang. And again, last week I talked about why Extensity is great. If you download this free extension, it allows you to control all of your extensions. So because I have so many, I love Extensity. I can turn them on or off as I need them. They do take up memory. You don't need them all running at the same time. So this is a great free extension to use. And you can see I have Bookshare Web Reader activated. Just by clicking on another one, I can activate it or click on it again to deactivate it. So Extensity is wonderful, and that's how you'll get the web reader, the Bookshare Web Reader. Now, what I'm going to do is click on my Google Docs app. You can see a lot of the other apps for Google are here. Google Docs, which is the equivalent of Word document, but it's the Google Docs, and Google Slides, and Google Sheets. So this is their version of Excel and PowerPoint, for example. It's all the Google apps. They're wonderful. I'm going to click on Google Docs, and I'm going to create a new doc so that I can show you some free options available built right into a Google Doc. So this is a brand new blank Google Doc. Your student may be starting to write a paper, essay, etc. Few great things about Google Docs. Of course, if students are using Google Docs and Google Apps, they automatically save to their Google Drive. So if you're not familiar with Google Drive, that is the cloud storage. I know that cloud is a mystery to some people, but that is the place where you can save documents, handouts, worksheets from teachers. All of your students can save their papers, their documents, their Google Docs, their PowerPoints, anything that you would typically save in your own documents, you save in your Google Drive. Google Drive is available from any device at any location. So the benefit to that is that your students can save something in Google Drive at school and then go home to another device, log into their Google Drive, and it's waiting for them. They can go to the public library, if anyone uses the library anymore, hopefully they do, and they can log into a computer there and go to Google Drive or an iPad or a Chromebook go to their drive, and those documents are waiting for them. They don't have to put them on a flash drive. They don't have to email them. They don't have to worry about losing them. They're always there. So the brilliance of Google Docs. I'm in a brand new Google Doc. You can see at the top it looks just like Microsoft Office Word. Students have available the options rather to change the text style, the text size, etc., just like a Word doc. And up at the top here it says Untitled Document. So the first thing I always encourage students to do is name this document. So name the document because you don't want a bunch of untitled documents automatically saved in your Google Drive that you're then sifting through to get to. So whatever activity it is they're working on, name that document. So now again, they don't have to hit File Save As or worry about putting it any place, especially for your students who struggle with remembering that. It is now automatically in their Google Drive. The other great thing, a couple of great things about Google Docs is more than one student or individual can be typing into a Google Doc at one time. So in the top right-hand corner, you see this blue share button. So if I click on share, I can enter the email addresses of people I want to share this with. And to the right here, you can see I can choose can edit, can comment, or can view. If teachers are sharing something with students, they just want them to read it and have access to it in their drive, and they don't want them to be able to edit it, they'll just choose can view. They can share it with one student, an entire class. They can choose to let comments be put on there, and that's when the teacher's going to go back and forth with editing papers with students, because students share things with teachers share things with students, etc. If a student shares something with another student, perhaps they're working with a partner on a group project and choose can edit, they now can both type into this document at the same time and see the changes real time, immediately. So if two students have to work on a project or paper, they can both be typing in different locations and still see the changes that are made. Maybe they're on the phone with each other or doing FaceTime and working on this together from two different locations. And that's the same if you're a professional using Google Docs. Maybe you have a meeting coming up. You want everybody to be able to type in their portion, and it's on the same document immediately. So the sharing possibilities are excellent as far as Google Docs. Now, the wonderful thing about Google Docs as far as what is free and available. In this top toolbar, File, Edit, etc., just like a typical toolbar, there's this piece right here, this option called Add-ons. So my mouse is hovered over Add-ons, and when you click on Add-ons, there's a few that I have downloaded that I'm going to show you, but you need to get add-ons before you can use them. So you go down this drop-down menu, and you click on Get Add-ons. Now this store for add-ons looks very similar to apps or extensions, but they're free. You can see there's EasyBib, which I'm going to show you, which is phenomenal. There's some math options, charts, so that you can put charts right in your Google Docs, mind mapping, calculator. There's really so much here, and these are all free. So you can click on one, and again, you'll have the plus sign to add it. Now you want to use the add-on. You go right back up to that same add-ons portion of the Google Docs. You click on add-ons. Now the ones that you've chosen to add are available at the top of this drop-down menu. So these are the three that I recommend. You can certainly go through the add-ons yourself, as can your students, and add the ones that they would be wanting to use. But EasyBib, certainly choose EasyBib and then manage bibliography. Now maybe the student's written 5 pages or 10 pages. They're ready to cite all of their sources and put that bibliography right into this Google Doc. So it's now available to the right-hand side. They could cite a book, a journal article, or a website. They could type the title or the ISBN number. So I'll just put in a title here. Now, if you put in the ISBN number, you'll certainly get to the specific book that you want to find a site for. So I'm going to choose the first one here, To Kill a Mockingbird. Now you can see before I add the bibliography to my doc, if I click on the style, I can choose MLA, APA, Chicago, and so many other styles available, depending on who is doing the citing, and then add bibliography to doc. So now you can see it put that bibliography in the appropriate format into my Google Doc for me. It does do this alphabetically, which is wonderful. and they can continue to add as many as they need to. They can do journal articles. If they do a website, they simply choose website. They copy and paste the website into the website URL, and it properly cites it, and then they add it to their doc. So that is a wonderful one. Some schools are paying their easy bid. No need to do that if you have Google Docs and your students are using Google Docs. The next one is speech recognition. So we talked about extensions that offer voice recognition so that students can use their voice to type in a Google Doc. In last week's webinar, again, it's recorded for those of you who might be interested and missed it. However, it's also available as an add-on, and it is called speech recognition. It does work without having to create a voice profile. It does work with built-in microphones on the laptop that you're using. It also works with a built-in microphone on Chromebooks. And I do highly recommend noise-canceling headset microphones if your students are going to start using this often, or if you're going to use it often yourself. It does make less mistakes, more accurate and efficient. So you essentially choose your language, and when you hit start, you can start speaking to use the voice recognition. Again, try it yourself. I have many students who have used it, and they don't need to create a voice profile. They literally can just hit start and begin speaking what they need to speak to use their voice to type. And the one after that, text help study skills. So these are highlighters. Again, these are part of the read and write extension that we talked about last week. It was just one of the options to use these highlighters so that you can then highlight important information that maybe the teacher shared 5 pages on a particular topic, and they want to highlight important information. They highlight with their mouse. They hit the highlight tool, or color rather. I'll do one more. So maybe they're highlighting several pieces that are in this Google Doc, and then they have the collect highlights option here. So they can collect the highlights, and what it does is it takes those highlights, maybe they separated by color, and it creates those, it exports rather those highlights into a separate Google Doc for them. So it took those highlights and put it into a separate Google Doc with the information collected on the bottom for them to get back to. So that can be really handy, especially again if teachers are sharing, 5 pages or 10 pages of handouts. Tell students to read it. For these particular students, you want to make sure that the teachers are sharing it with the students so they can put it in their Google Drive, or it's automatically in their Google Drive. The teacher shares it. Wonderful if these teachers are creating these worksheets and handouts in Google Docs. But if they're not, they can certainly email it to a student, and a student can save it in their Google Drive so they can then pull it in. And something for everyone to know. A couple of options here. So when I go to File and get this drop-down menu, you see that I have Download As. So if this was a Word doc or PDF and I wanted to download it because the teacher gave it to me in that format, and I want to download it as a Google Doc, that would be in my options here. You can see if it's any other format, if it's a Google Doc and the student wants it in Microsoft Office Word or PDF or any of those other formats, they can certainly choose that and convert it. So know that you have those options if it's not already in the format that you need. And this is really helpful because a lot of individuals have documents that are already in their documents per se, on their computer or on their desktop, wherever you're saving them. And they're worried that they don't want to have to create all new documents. And so if I go now to my Google Drive, just to give you an example, if you as a professional or an educator or your students are beginning to use Google Drive, the option to the left here, the New button, that red button, when you click on New, you go to File, Upload. So now you can go to anywhere on your computer and get to your documents, etc. So you would be able to get to your documents that you typically have on your computer and upload them into Google Drive, and then they'd be saved here. And again, your students would have them saved here in order to use with any of these apps or extensions. And as I just showed you, if they needed to change the format from a Word doc to a Google Doc, they can easily do that. So it doesn't have to be in the format that it was originally in. So check out add-ons in a Google Doc. They are free and they are very helpful for students. Those are just the three that I found. There's charts also that is excellent. Some of the other free assistive technology tools. So again, just back to the app, I want to go a little bit more into one particular app. It's called Lucid Chart for Education. And so this is the icon here in the top left. If you downloaded Lucid Chart for Education from the web store, you'll have access to this. Now, there's a free version that allows you up to 5 mind maps for free. The paid version is only $3.95 a year. So as far as low cost, for your low cost, it is a low cost option, but you have so much at your fingertips with Lucid Chart for Education. So for your students who would benefit from mind mapping or brainstorming, there are other apps for mind mapping and brainstorming. I have about 4 or 5 downloaded. There's MindMeister, MindMoto. If you're in the App Store, the Chrome Web Store, and you're searching for mind mapping, you're going to find many. And you may find a free one that does the trick for you and your students. This is free for up to 5, and then it's $3.95 a year. But I feel this one really does offer a lot more for educators. So you could start from scratch and create a brand new document. And you have the option to start with shapes and so forth, and you could start a brand new flowchart or mind map. And you get to know to use the text tools and the shapes and the connecting. But back in documents, you also have access, if you choose education, for example, to all of these templates that you can just start using. You don't have to reinvent the wheel or create your own. You can use all of these templates that are already available here, and students can fill them in digitally. So you can see that I've chosen a few: interactive map of the United States, fact and opinion, describing wheel, Venn diagram, story map. So you can open up any of these mind maps or visual templates and certainly have the student begin typing or filling it in very quickly and easily. You can add color in the background, you can change shapes, etc. You can save this to their Google Drive or print it out. So for the students, typically your students who need to use some mind mapping or visual templates or graphic organizers, it's because they're struggling with writing. And a lot of times that means that if you hand them a paper template or graphic organizer, they still have a difficult time filling that in if they have a difficult time with handwriting itself or writing or fine motor, any of those things. So this is a great way to engage them digitally and be able to fill in these templates or these graphic organizers and use them in that particular way also. So that's Lucid Chart for Education. Again, as I mentioned, if I go to my app, you'll see that I've downloaded so many others. At the bottom of my screen, there's MindUp, there's MindMeister, MindOmo rather. There's just really a lot there as far as mind mapping and brainstorming. Connected Mind is another one. All great options. Connected Mind is one that looks similar to Inspiration or Kidspiration. So if this is something more appealing to you, you can start a brand new map, connect shapes, or connect images that they save off the internet. So really a lot of great free options there. One of the other free resources that are on your list, going over a few more as well that aren't on the list, but I'll make sure that they're on there for you after today's webinar. This one is Rewordify. I've had a few educators tell me that they're using this well with students, and they do have some statistics and so forth from other educators who have offered feedback. So essentially with Rewordify, you can take text that is more difficult to read and copy and paste it in there, and it rewords it. It simplifies it. Phenomenal for Shakespeare. And just more complex text that's difficult for them to understand when they're researching on the internet, for example. So you can see one of their examples. The text says, "You will soon speak more eloquently about a greater number of contentious contemporary issues due to your erudition." And the Rewordified text that comes up, you will soon speak more beautifully about more argument-causing modern topics due to your amazing knowledge. So you can try it yourself, copy it and paste, and hit rewordify text, and see if it is something that would work well for you or your students. And again, it has a lot of options here. You can see the hyperlinks to helping teachers save time, engaging lessons, how to improve learning outcomes. So a lot of options there for educators. There is a new extension that I just found, and I want to make sure that I mention it to those of you who did attend last week, because it's not on the list, but because you have the Google Doc, I'm going to add it, and you're going to see it just like magic. So the other extension that I just found that wasn't on the list of all the other apps and extensions is called Strict Workflow. I think this is brilliant for students and adults. I can use this myself. I think we all can actually at certain points of the day, unless those of us who are very well disciplined. So Strict Workflow essentially enforces, as it says, a 25-minute work session and then a 5-minute break. So it essentially allows you to block out, if you're working on a particular document, if you're working in a Google Doc or if you're working in a website, you can block all of the sites. You can see here, you can block YouTube, you can block all the other things, Twitter, social media, or just the other websites that may be distracting to you, so that you are on task for 25 minutes and has a timer. And then after that, it's going to give you a 5-minute break so that you have access to do other things for a break, and then continue to repeat as long as you need to until your work is done. And so, again, in addition to all those other great apps and extensions that we learned about last week, I think that is a really wonderful one to try. So show one more. I have many more, but I'm going to show one more before I open it up for questions. So again, remember, if you have any questions, type them into the chat. So Wolfram Alpha. Wolfram Alpha is a wonderful website for research for students. It's essentially like a souped-up encyclopedia. It just has a phenomenal amount of information separated into so many different categories. You can see mathematics, art and design, engineering, geography, etc., food and nutrition. You could type in this search bar, why is the sky blue? And the student's going to get all of the information, scientific information, and answer. We can go to examples, but I'm just going to type one in. I'm going to do a math problem, for example. Oh, here we go, and they pop up. So let's do this one. 5x plus 2y equals 10. And when you type into them, you can get all of the different symbols that you would need if you needed to type in mathematical equations, for example. So now here's the equation, graph, alternate form, solution for the variable. We can click on step-by-step solution, for example. Oh, and you can get the pro version. Everything has a pro version nowadays. But the free option also wonderful as far as all of the access that they have to the information on various topics. So certainly check out Wolfram Alpha. And I'm going to pause for a moment to find out if the audience has any questions before moving on to a few other free resources.
There is a question, two questions. One from Jack. Any experience or knowledge of using Bookshare outside the U.S.? How difficult is it to sign up?
Sure, thank you for that. The only other place that I've heard of education professionals using Bookshare and students is Canada. I know they have their own Bookshare as well, but other than Canada and the U.S., I just have not heard of it, so I'm just not aware of it. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It's just I'm not aware of it.
Okay, and the next two, it looks like they're just statements. From Jen, Google Docs just bought up last week's course materials that you had us download.
Did she say Google Docs blocked it?
No, she said Google Docs brought up last week's course materials, and it was the materials that you had them download. So it looks like it's accessible or it's available through Google Docs.
Yes,
So
exactly.
it sounds like
Yep.
she
So
just, yep.
okay, good. Yep, the Google Doc was offered for last week's webinar so that you could get to the apps and extensions that we talked about. So hopefully she's stating that she has access to that, which is wonderful.
Yeah. And then the last one is, and this is a statement also, by the way, the read aloud software from Mac is not compatible with the OS X Mavericks or Yosemite. So those are
Yes,
the
good
last
point.
two. Yep.
Thank you for that. Yeah, great point made by that particular commenter. So really good before you download Read Out Loud for Mac to make sure that your operating system is compatible. If it's not, I've had ITs in certain schools be able to downgrade you essentially so that you go back to the previous operating system that is compatible. So the Read Out Loud software has not caught up with the more recent operating systems for the Mac. So thank you for pointing that out. Good point.
Yep. I think the last one before these two operating systems was Mountain Lion, as I believe the two
Right.
that preceded these two. Yep.
Thank you. Yes. So if you have a student and you only have Macs available in your school, again, something to consider. There's other devices, the iPad, the Chromebook, PC, laptop, but if they only are going to have access to Macs, if your school is all Macs, they do need to provide that access to the student, and it is a simple solution. It's free. They just need to make sure that the operating system is one that's going to be compatible with the Read Out Loud software. And thank you for pointing that out for others to be aware of. Okay, so we're going to move on with a few more free resources. Story Shares is another one of those free website resources and organizations that's pretty recent. So with Story Share, I'm going to go to the About page. This is a nonprofit devoted to reading practice and improving literacy skills, and overall is offering relevant readable content for students who are older but need the easier reading level of text. So it's essentially geared to middle school and high school students who need appropriate reading material, but at lower levels or lower lexile levels of reading. And so if you go to their library, you can essentially search anything here by author, by age, by grade level, and find the different books that they have available. And these are, if you click on one, you'll see in the top left, they are available with text-to-speech, so they can have those books read out loud to them as well, which is really great. You can sign up your school or as an individual. Note, because some people did not find their school in the list, if you don't find your school in the list, there is the other option all the way at the end. So you can choose others so that you start able to use this particular program. So definitely check it out. It's fairly new. I don't have specific feedback from educators yet, but a lot who are interested in starting to use this in order to provide, again, some of the leveled readers, but interesting content for students who are older, which can be very difficult to find for sure for middle school and high school students who are reading at a lower level but still want really interesting stories. So check out Story Share, and just so that you're aware, you can notice the URL. If you just Google Story Share, it's going to take you to a different website. The website is the storyshares with an S.org. Another great one is Calibri. Some people say Calibri. But what this allows you to do for free, and you can check out the demo as well, it does have the video tutorial there, is for your students who are accessing ebooks in EPUB or any other format. Maybe they're accessing the format from a Kindle or online as a free daisy. So sometimes they want that particular ebook that you have saved in a different format to use on another device. So perhaps you downloaded a free EPUB or a DAISY format from Bookshare, and then the student wants to be able to read it on their Kindle, for example. So a lot of times, students are able to start using this program themselves after watching a tutorial because many of them are tech savvy. Other times, professionals are pretty tech savvy after going through the video tutorials, but it does walk you through converting the ebooks to the format that you need in order to put onto the device that you need it on. A lot of times you can just find those books in other formats if you search. Google has a lot of information already there for you. Certainly Google the title of the book and the format that you may need, EPUB, DAISY, etc. And it may already be available online somewhere for free for you, so check that out first. But if not, this is a great option for ebook management and for converting the different formats of the book so that they can use it on various devices. Bubble was another option. I don't know if I'm still going to be signed into my account. So if you're not interested in using Chrome apps and extensions, see if it remembers my sign-in. This is another option for creating those mind maps and brainstorms. Always good when the password is right the first time. So this, again, is free up to, I believe it's 3 mind maps or brainstorms. It could be 5, but I think it's 3. Get started with mind mapping and brainstorming, and then if you want to sign up for the subscription afterwards, it's $6.95 per year. So it's a little bit more expensive than Lucidchart, but if you are not interested in apps and extensions for whatever reason and you just want a free website resource to go to, this is a great option as well to start mind mapping and brainstorming with your students and to save them and to use them. So just another option or tool in the toolbox per se. Exploratory, since we're on mind mapping, another free place for visual templates. So again, some of the typical ones that you may be interested in using and printing off to use with your students. So these are printable for your students that do want to use the printed version and handwrite in them. And for math, Math Playground, for those of you who may or may not be aware, those online math games for when students are earning free time, they get done with whatever they're doing in class. This is another great option for them to check out. You can see that it has percent and ratio, pre-algebra, fractions and decimals, multiplication and division, IXL that's being advertised to the right there is another great option for free math games. I really highly recommend the Thinking Block series. It's a lot of great games, whether they're doing addition and subtraction, multiplication and division. And I also showed these on the iPad, I believe, or they're on the list for the iPad app. So there are Thinking Block iPad apps for your students who are using iPads, and they're available here as well. Word problems, ratio word problems, these are just really great for helping them to chunk important information and especially work through those word problems that can be difficult for students, but in a fun way. So check out Math Playground and certainly check out the Thinking Block apps in particular, but there really is so much available here based on grade and whatever particular type of math your student may be doing. And the last one that I had on the list is Quizlet. And I find that this is one that's been around for quite a long time and been improved upon many years over. Quizlet, you can sign up as a teacher or a student. You have access to search their incredible library for things that, for libraries of activities and flashcards and so forth that other professionals or students may have already created. But just to give you an example, we could do like multiply fraction, for example. So when you choose a particular topic, and it can be any topic, again, not just math, but geography or history or any of those things, some of the great things I really like are the digital flashcards because they have text-to-speech. So yes, we have some students who are those rote learners and they really need to have the flashcards for the automaticity. But for studying, this is nice to have the text-to-speech denominator. And then click to flip.
The number below the bar in a fraction that tells how many equal parts are in the whole bar in the group.
And then they can go on to the next card. So again, just for studying, students typically with typical flashcards, first of all, they have to fill them out. You can fill out a brand new set. You can create your own set here, or maybe you find a set that's already really helpful to use. But when they're quizzing themselves or studying with friends or on their own, they have the option of thinking it, saying it out loud, and then listening to it. And especially for students who need the text-to-speech or for comprehension and retention, just this alone, just the digital flashcards with text-to-speech is great. And then you also have the option for if you're a student and you want to study before you take the exam, for example, and test yourself, there are games that are associated, so like Scatter and Space Race, and they're essentially playing the games. They listen to the instructions or they read the instructions. And if you're an educator and you set this up for your class, you can create lessons on here that all of your students have access to when they sign into your class, and then they can play the games. They can study for a vocabulary quiz or spelling quiz or a math test. So really a lot available on Quizlet to be able to do, and a great resource. And as I mentioned, sometimes you don't have to start from scratch because there's so much available here from other educators and students who have shared that it's a really great library to search. So just want to reach back to everyone and let you know, again, our website, atfored.com, atfored.com for Technology for Education. I will be online for those of you who are taking the course, talking with you in the discussion forums and the activities. I've loved the conversations there. Feel free to ask any questions as you've been doing and continue to discuss what we've learned today or over the past 2 weeks. And for those of you who may want future training, certainly connect with us either through our website or Facebook or Twitter, or even if you want to hear the latest and greatest assistive technology posts. And then absolutely continue to go back to CTD because many other experts and professionals in the field. Learning Center has the cafe, webinars, online courses coming up, and connect with them on social media, Twitter as well as online. And I will open it up one more time for any questions that anyone may have before we conclude.
All right, you have one question here, and it's about Caliber. It's asking if it's free.
It is. Yep, it is free. Any other questions?
Diane is typing. She says, thank you for a great webinar series.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you for that feedback. And thank you to everyone who attended this evening. I hope you benefit from some of what you learned.
So you're getting a chorus of thank yous right now.
Appreciate that. Thank you. And thank you to the administrators, Anna Maria and Nolan, as always. Fabulous this evening. Thank you.
No problem. Glad to help. Okay, looks like that's all of the questions, and people are starting to sign off.